The lobby couch was stiff, cold through the thin lining of her coat. Claire folded her hands over her purse and stared at the front desk where she had just been turned away for the third time. "Ma'am," the young man said with a polite wince, "the room reservation, it's not in your name. Your daughter said they didn't authorize a third guest." Third guest. Like she was a stranger, a tag-along, not the one who'd watched those kids when they were toddlers so her daughter could finish night school. Claire looked over at the elevator. She could picture the laughter behind the closed doors, the clinking of wine glasses, the filtered selfies that would appear by morning. Family getaway. She had come because they'd asked, or rather, assumed. No one ever explicitly invited her. It was just expected she'd be there, quietly helpful, quietly invisible. Until now. "Do you want us to call another hotel, ma'am?" the desk clerk asked again. Claire shook her head, standing slowly. "No," she said. "That won't be necessary." She walked back to the corner of the lobby, sat down, and pulled her coat tighter. The clock above the concierge desk ticked like it had somewhere to be, unlike her. A little girl walked by, holding her mother's hand. The child looked at Claire, then whispered something. Claire caught only one word. "Alone?" Her chest tightened, but she didn't cry. Because sometimes pain stops being sharp. It just confirms what you already knew. She sat for hours, watching taxis come and go. The sky outside shift from steel grey to charcoal. No one came down, no one called, not even a text to ask if she was okay. At 4:12 a.m, Claire stood, straightened her scarf, picked up her small overnight bag, and checked out. But not just from the hotel. Before the hotel lobby and the stiff couch, there were the days that looked fine on paper. Claire lived in a modest in-law suite behind her daughter's house, a converted garage, technically. It had a small sink, a cot, a mini fridge, and a television that only got 3 channels clearly, but it was enough, as her son-in-law liked to say. She never asked for more. In the mornings, she'd shuffle in through the back door around 6:30 a.m, just in time to make coffee and cut up fruit for the kids' breakfast. By the time her daughter, Melissa, came downstairs in her business casual hurry, everything was already on the table. Claire was careful not to be in the way. "You're a lifesaver, Mum," Melissa would call out, grabbing her thermos. Then she'd be gone. And Claire would begin tidying up, folding laundry, running small errands no one assigned, but always expected. She didn't mind. Not really. This was what being useful looked like, she told herself. She liked feeling needed, even if no one remembered to say so. Her son, Jacob, lived 2 hours away and only called when his car insurance needed renewing or when he couldn't figure out his tax documents. "You always know this stuff," he'd say, laughing as though that excused the months of silence. Claire never complained. She'd simply log in, fix the issue, and hang up with a polite, "Let me know if you need anything else." Need. That word floated around her life like a string without a balloon. When they needed her, she appeared. But when it came to invitations, decisions, or even group texts about family events, Claire was the last to know, or never told. "Oh, we thought you'd be fine staying with the kids in the other room. We assumed you weren't interested in that trip, Mom. You're so independent. We didn't want to bother you." There was always a justification, always a gentle way of saying, "You're not really part of this anymore." Still, she stayed. Still, she smiled, because where else would she go? It was better to be near them than nowhere. Right? Right? It started with the Airbnb. Melissa was planning a weekend trip to celebrate her anniversary with the whole family. "We're all going to Lake Juniper," she said, waving her phone in front of Claire. "Got a great deal on a 7-bedroom rental." Claire blinked. 7 bedrooms? That's a lot. "Yeah, but it's for all of us. You, me, the kids, Jacob, his girlfriend, even Uncle Ron. Big family thing. Claire smiled faintly. That sounds nice. Which room am I in? Melissa hesitated. Oh, right. So, actually, we kind of assumed you'd be okay taking the den downstairs. It's not technically a room, more like a pull-out couch situation. Claire nodded slowly. Sure, of course. And if it gets tight, we might ask if you could share with the kids. I mean, you're the easiest one to work with. Everyone else is so picky. Claire laughed quietly, but something shifted. The next morning, she overheard Melissa on the phone with Jacob. No, I didn't ask her. She'll say yes. She always does. The words slipped in like a draft under the door. Later that day, while taking out the recycling, Claire ran into their neighbour, June. Heard you're all heading to the lake, June said with a grin. Yes, should be fun, Claire replied. Melissa told me you were sleeping in the basement. Hope you bring an extra blanket. It gets cold down there. Claire stiffened, not angry at June, just hollow. She hadn't even known it was the basement. Apparently, everyone else had. That night, she sat in her in-law suite and stared at the floral wallpaper Melissa had picked out 5 years ago. There were no photos of Claire in the house, only drawings the grandkids had made, and professional family portraits from which she was always out of town or behind the camera. Claire made herself a cup of tea, sat in silence, and for the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt erased. The resort lobby was quiet at midnight. Too quiet for a woman who was supposed to have a bed upstairs. Claire stood at the front desk with her bag in hand and a polite smile plastered across her face. I think there's been a mix-up, she told the clerk. I'm with the Thompson family, room 208 or maybe 312. The clerk typed something, frowned. I'm sorry, ma'am, there's no reservation under your name, and the rooms we have on file don't allow additional guests without approval. Claire blinked. I'm their mother. I understand, he said gently, but I was told to refer any changes back to the original booking. Claire reached for her phone, called Melissa. No answer. Jacob. No answer. She tried the room numbers. The hotel wouldn't ring them without approval. She sat down on a bench beside the fake palm tree in the lobby. 30 minutes passed. No one came. A couple walked by, holding hands and laughing. The woman glanced at Claire, then leaned in and whispered something to her partner. He turned to look. Claire felt the burn behind her eyes, but she didn't cry. She stood up, approached the front desk again. Could I just stay in the lounge for a few hours until someone comes down? The clerk hesitated. We don't usually allow that, but it's fine. She thanked him, sat back down, wrapped her coat tighter. At 2:17 a.m., she texted Melissa one last time. I'm in the lobby. Please confirm what room I'm in. Otherwise, I'll make other arrangements. No reply. At 3:09, a housekeeping cart rolled past. The woman pushing it paused, looked at Claire with something almost like worry. Are you okay, ma'am? Claire nodded once. Just waiting on family. The woman hesitated, then placed a small folded blanket beside her. Some families, she said quietly, take too long. Claire looked down at the blanket, took a breath, and finally exhaled something heavier than exhaustion. At 4:04 a.m., she stood, left the lobby, and made a silent promise to herself. Next time they looked for her, they'd find the room empty, but the space clearer than ever. Claire didn't leave a note. She left a key. At 4:23 a.m., she walked out of the resort's main entrance, her small carry-on rolling softly behind her on the concrete path. No one followed. She asked the front desk to call her a cab. When they asked for a destination, she simply said, anywhere with coffee and room for one. The driver was quiet, older, respectful. She appreciated that. He dropped her at a modest hotel near the highway, Not flashy, but clean. Unassuming. Claire paid with her own card, not the shared family one, not the backup Melissa gave her, just in case. She booked the room under her full name, Claire Ann Pierce. No discounts, no favours, no family codes. When she entered the room, she didn't sigh or collapse. She simply sat at the edge of the bed, looked around the unfamiliar space, and whispered to herself, "You did it." Not because it was brave, but because it was necessary. She didn't check her phone. She didn't wonder whether anyone had noticed. She already knew the answer. Instead, she showered, put on fresh clothes, and went downstairs for breakfast as soon as the cafe opened. The young waitress poured her coffee and smiled. "You travelling for business or vacation?" Claire smiled gently. "Neither. Just relocating." The girl nodded, not pressing. It was the first time in months Claire felt like a person, not a role. She took out her small leather notebook, the one she hadn't written in since Harold died 12 years ago, and began to list the things she remembered were hers. Bank account in my name only, Pacific First Savings, lockbox at Northern Trust, emergency CD fund, matured 2 years ago, $12,700 from Harold's bond, untouched. Each line felt like a step back toward herself. She underlined the last note, "Call Harold's old advisor." Claire didn't smile, but the corners of her mouth softened, because for the first time in years, she wasn't waiting on anyone to decide how her day should go. She was checking herself back into her own life. The call came just after Claire returned from her walk. She almost didn't answer the unknown number, but something, maybe intuition, maybe boredom, made her tap accept. "Claire Ann Pierce," the voice asked, calm and clipped. "Speaking. This is Matthew Klein. I'm an estate planner. I worked with your late husband, Harold, years ago. He listed you as the primary contact for several accounts. I've tried reaching out before. No answer." Claire blinked. "I changed numbers a while back." "I understand. Apologies for calling out of the blue, but your name was just flagged in a dormant review. It seems one of Harold's offshore investment funds has reached maturity. It hasn't been touched. We need to confirm next steps." She sat down slowly on the hotel bed. "I thought we cashed all of those out after he passed. This one was separate, a quiet account. He set it up before he got sick. It's currently valued at just over $212,000. Claire didn't respond. "Miss Pierce?" "I'm here," she whispered. There was a pause. "He named you sole beneficiary. It's completely in your control. If you'd like, I can arrange to meet in person. I'm based just outside Charleston." Claire looked at her small notebook, still open on the desk. Underlined words stared back. "Call Harold's old advisor." She hadn't known exactly why she wrote it. Now she did. "Yes," she said finally. "I'd like to meet. Tomorrow, if you're free." "Absolutely. I'll send details." As the call ended, Claire didn't feel excited. She felt steady. Later, over tea in the hotel cafe, she thought back to a moment from years ago. Harold sitting at their dining room table, sorting papers. "Why don't you put everything in your name?" she'd asked. "Because," he said, smiling faintly, "sometimes people forget how valuable they are. I never will." At the time, she thought it was sentimental. Now it felt like something else, something planned. Claire sat at the desk in her modest hotel room, the notebook still open beside her half-drunk tea. She reached into the side pouch of her overnight bag to find a charger, and her fingers brushed against something stiff and paper-like. She pulled it out. An old envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges, her name on the front, Harold's handwriting, no stamp. It must have fallen into the lining of the bag years ago. She didn't even remember packing this bag last time. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid. from 1986. The two of them, standing in front of their first house. Claire was holding a set of keys. Harold had his arm loosely draped over her shoulder. He was smiling. She looked startled, happy, but unsure. On the back, in blue pen, just 5 words, "You were always the key." Claire stared at the words. Not, "You have the key." Not, "You hold the key." You were the key. The room was silent except for the muffled hum of traffic outside. Claire closed her eyes. In that moment, she didn't feel foolish for trusting people. She didn't feel bitter about being left in that lobby. She felt remembered. Even if no one else in her life had noticed her lately, one man once had, fully. That counted for something. No, more than something. It was enough to start again. She tucked the Polaroid into the inside flap of her journal, pressed it flat, like something sacred. Then she opened a new page and wrote a single line across the top. This time, the room will have my name on it. She underlined it. Twice. Claire didn't say goodbye when she returned to the house 2 days later. She timed it for mid-afternoon, when Melissa would be at work and the grandkids at school. The garage door still creaked like it always did. Her in-law suite smelled faintly of lavender and something else, something colder, disuse. She moved quickly, methodically. First, she took the box from under her bed, her old banking records, the spare checkbook, the notarized forms Harold had insisted she keep, just in case. Then she opened the small safe tucked into the bottom of the linen closet. Inside, a dusty jewellery pouch, their wedding certificate, and a thumb drive Harold labelled in his blocky, unsteady writing. Private, Claire only. She pocketed it. Next, she opened the shared file cabinet in the main hallway, right beneath the family calendar. Her name was still listed on 2 of the children's savings accounts. She took the forms. Quietly. She logged into the joint online portal Melissa had helped her set up years ago. "So, you don't have to keep bothering me with little stuff," Melissa had said. Claire removed her profile access. It took 4 clicks. She removed herself from the utility bills, cancelled the auto draft she'd set up for the internet. Then she walked to the refrigerator. There, among photos and notes, was a small image of Claire and Harold, wedged behind a magnet from Myrtle Beach. She pulled it free, slipped it into her notebook, and stared at the empty space it left behind. No one would notice it missing right away. No one noticed it was there. Before she left, she placed the spare house key in the kitchen drawer. No note, only silence. She walked out the front door without looking back. It didn't slam, it didn't creak, it just closed, soft and final. The office smelled like cedar and quiet money. Claire sat across from Matthew Klein, his desk lined with folders, a leather portfolio open between them. "The offshore account matured a year ago," he said, flipping to a page. "Harold structured it cleanly. No debt ties, no family obligations. You're the sole access point." Claire ran her finger along the edge of the document. "He never told me about this." "He did," Matthew said gently. "Just not in words." She nodded slowly. There it was again, that echo of Harold's quiet foresight. Matthew passed her a pen. "If you sign here, we'll initiate full access and transfer. You'll have control within 72 hours. Claire didn't hesitate. She signed her name, not rushed, not trembling, just clear. "There's a suggestion I'd like to offer," Matthew added. "One option is to set up a legacy trust, something your children and grandchildren could benefit from in time." Claire looked at him. Not angry, not offended, just steady. "I think I'll hold on to it myself for now." Matthew gave a small, respectful nod. "Understood." He handed her a slim leather folder. "This is yours now. Account access, international ID codes, digital login. And a second card. No one else has a copy, not even me. Claire traced her fingers along the gold lettering. Her initials. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out the old Polaroid, the one from 1986, and laid it gently beside the folder. Matthew glanced at it, then looked at her. You've had that a long time. Yes, Claire replied softly. But I think I finally understand it. She picked it up, put it in the side pocket of the leather folder, as if to say, you come with me now. Always. They shook hands. No contracts. No applause. Just a woman walking out of an office for the first time with everything she needed, everything she didn't have to ask permission for. Claire had returned to the house, not to stay, but to pick up a birth certificate from the safe for banking verification. She chose mid-morning, knowing Melissa would be home with the youngest grandchild. As she walked up the side path, she paused outside the kitchen window. It was slightly ajar. She heard voices, Melissa, and Jacob, on speaker. Well, she hasn't messaged since she left the resort, Melissa said, but honestly, I think she needed the space. She's intense sometimes. Jacob chuckled. You mean she asks questions and wants to be included? God forbid. Melissa sighed. No, I just mean she doesn't really fit anymore, Jake. The way we live now, everything's fast, flexible. She gets overwhelmed. I don't think she realises we've moved on. A pause. She probably thinks we owe her something just because she watched the kids all those years. Claire stood frozen, the wind catching the side of her sweater. She was helpful. Jacob added, but yeah, time moves on. We all had to grow up. She needs to do the same. Melissa let out a soft laugh. Honestly, it's kind of been peaceful not having to tiptoe around her feelings. Claire didn't wait to hear the rest. She turned, walked back down the path. Every step felt heavier than the last, but not with anger, with clarity. The truth wasn't a knife. It was a mirror. They weren't monsters. They weren't cruel. They were simply done with her, done including her, done accommodating, done pretending she still mattered in the day-to-day rhythm of their new lives. And now, so was she. Claire arrived at the local branch office just before noon. She wore a slate grey coat, hair tied back, and held a small folder under one arm. The banker recognised her immediately. Mrs. Pierce, good to see you again. Are we adding a new beneficiary today? No, Claire said with a faint smile. We're removing them. A pause. The woman nodded, respectful. Of course. May I ask which accounts you're updating? Claire handed over the folder. Inside, copies of every account she had opened for her grandchildren, each one originally joint with Melissa or Jacob, for convenience. Education savings, emergency fund, even a modest investment pool Harold had started for future needs. Claire had funded them quietly over the years, birthday checks, tax returns, every bonus she once tucked away without telling. Please remove my name from all joint access and cancel any recurring contributions from my personal funds. The banker hesitated. Are you sure you don't want to inform the co-owners first? They'll lose access to... No, Claire said gently. They'll be fine. They're used to figuring things out without me. 10 signatures later, it was done. Claire closed the folder, slipped it back into her bag, and thanked the banker. Outside, the air was crisp. Sunlight filtered through the trees. A few yellow leaves clung to branches, stubborn in late fall. She walked across the street to a quiet cafe she used to love, one she hadn't visited in years because the family schedule was full. The host smiled. Table for one? Yes, Claire replied. By the window, please. She ordered tomato soup and an iced tea, sat with her back straight, watched the people pass outside. She didn't check her phone, didn't think about what Melissa or Jacob would say when they finally tried to log in, because this wasn't revenge, this was release. Her world wasn't shrinking. It was finally hers again. Claire was folding her scarf when the phone rang. She didn't recognise the number at first, then saw the area code. Melissa. She let it ring twice before answering. "Hello, Mum?" A pause. Claire said nothing. "I noticed you removed yourself from the accounts." Melissa continued. Her tone was sharp, but there was something under it. Strain. Claire waited. "You didn't tell anyone. Not even a text. It's like you're just disappearing." "I didn't think it would matter," Claire said calmly. "You seem to be doing just fine without me." Another pause. This one longer. "That's not fair." Claire raised an eyebrow, though Melissa couldn't see it. "Isn't it? You just left, Mom. No warning, no explanation. The kids have been asking where you are." Claire softened, just slightly. "And what did you tell them? That you needed time? Space? I don't know. You didn't say anything." "Neither did you," Claire replied. Melissa exhaled. Then, finally, a shift in her voice. Something almost real. "You used to make things feel steady, even when you were exhausted. I guess I forgot what it felt like when you stopped showing up." Claire held that line, let it echo in her chest. Mixed motive, half confession, half deflection. "I haven't stopped showing up," she said. "I just stopped showing up where I'm not welcome." Melissa didn't respond for a moment. "Are you okay?" Claire considered the question. Not the surface meaning, but the deeper one. "Yes," she said, for the first time in a long time. "So, what happens now?" Claire smiled faintly. "Now? I'm just seeing where the day takes me." "That's not like you." "I know," Claire said. "It's nice, isn't it?" She ended the call gently. No anger, no revenge. Just a boundary finally spoken out loud. Claire sat by the window of the short-term apartment she'd rented for the month. The view wasn't grand, just a parking lot and a diner across the street. But the space was hers. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, every fork in the drawer, selected by her. No one else had opinions. No one else had keys. She looked at her phone. Melissa hadn't messaged since their call. Jacob hadn't reached out at all. She wasn't surprised. She poured herself a cup of tea, then opened her notebook and flipped to the line she'd written days ago. "This time, the room will have my name on it." She smiled. Then, below it, she added a new line. "I'm still steady, just not for everyone anymore." Turning dialogue echo. Same words, different shape, different spine. Later that afternoon, she met with a local realtor. "I'm looking for something modest," Claire told her. "Quiet, safe, I don't need much, just a door that only opens for me." They toured a small condo on the edge of town. Neutral walls, sunlight in the morning, close enough to a bus line, far enough from noise. She walked through the space and didn't ask, "Would the kids like this?" She asked, "Would I?" And the answer was yes. She put in an offer that evening. Cash, from her own account. No co-signers, no explanations. Back in the apartment, she made herself a bowl of soup and turned on the old movie Harold used to love, the one with the lighthouse and the final letter. The TV flickered. And for the first time in years, Claire didn't feel like a character someone else had written. She felt like the author again. It had been nearly 3 weeks since Claire left the house. No one said it out loud, but the absence had grown roots. Melissa noticed it first in the small things. The kids' laundry wasn't folded on Sundays anymore. The trash bags piled up on the wrong days. The house had corners now, messy ones. At first, she told herself it was just an adjustment. But then came the school project, poster board and glitter chaos, and Claire wasn't there to corral the mess or offer quiet help while Melissa took a work call. Then the dishwasher broke. The plumber came, spoke in fast jargon, and Melissa stood there realizing she had no idea how Claire used to just know what to ask. Jacob called one evening. "Have you talked to Mom?" "She's fine. Just doing her own thing." "Did she say that?" "She said she's steady. For herself." There was a long pause. "You think she's really not coming back?" Melissa hesitated. She didn't pack a suitcase for a tantrum, Jake. She packed it like she meant to go. He sighed. "I thought she'd cool off. She always does. Not this time." Melissa stared at the kitchen table. A half-finished puzzle sat there. Claire's last one. She used to do them while the kids played, quietly, not asking for attention, just there. Now the pieces were scattered, gathering dust. Even the dog had started sleeping near the garage door again. One morning, Melissa opened the group text with her brother and typed, "Has anyone checked on her this week?" No one replied. Claire wasn't angry. She wasn't fighting. She was just gone. And that somehow felt worse. The photo had been wedged in the kitchen drawer for weeks. Melissa didn't remember who found it missing first. Jacob thought maybe the kids knocked it down. She told herself it didn't matter. But now, standing in front of the empty magnet spot where it used to hang, Claire and Harold on their porch, arms around each other, Melissa felt a weight in her chest she couldn't quite name. She reached into the drawer, pulled it out. The corner was slightly bent, the ink fading, but they looked happy. No, anchored. Melissa stared at her mother's face, younger, unsure, but strong in a way she hadn't noticed before. "You were always the key." She didn't know what the note on the back meant. Claire never said. Melissa brushed the frame gently, then placed it back on the fridge. Dead centre. No overlapping coupons. No report cards. Just the photo. She stepped back. The kitchen was quieter than usual. No coffee brewing. No humming. No soft footsteps behind her. She looked at the puzzle on the table, still incomplete. Without thinking, she walked over and slid 2 edge pieces into place, then another. She stopped, hand lingering on a piece shaped like a corner. She whispered, "I didn't know you were keeping us steady." Not until you stopped. Not a confession, not a cry. Just a quiet echo into a room that had grown heavier with silence. Upstairs, her youngest daughter shouted for help with homework. Melissa stood still for another second. Then, with unusual gentleness, she whispered again, to no one, "I miss your steadiness." And this time, it wasn't said with expectation. It was said with absence. Claire stood on the balcony of her new condo, a mug of warm cinnamon tea cupped in her hands. The sky stretched wide, soft pinks melting into pale gold. Somewhere below, a neighbour's wind chime danced gently in the breeze. She wasn't waiting for a phone call. Not today. Not anymore. Her phone was inside, face down on the nightstand. Unread messages from bank alerts, newsletters, and a single missed call from an unknown number blinked silently. Claire didn't check them. She had spent the morning repotting herbs on her windowsill. Basil, thyme, and the little mint plant that reminded her of Harold's Sunday iced tea. He used to sneak mint leaves into the pitcher and act surprised when she noticed. "Adds clarity," he'd wink. Claire smiled at the memory, but didn't linger. Instead, she picked up a manila envelope from her side table. It was addressed to the local women's shelter. Inside, a cashier's cheque, made out from her personal account. "No one should be left in a lobby overnight," she'd written on the sticky note. No grand gesture, no press release, just a quiet transfer of dignity. She sealed the envelope, walked it down to the mailbox. On the way back, she passed a child drawing with sidewalk chalk near the steps. The girl looked up. I like your hair. You look like a fairy godmother. Claire laughed truly. Only the quiet kind, she replied. Back upstairs, she made herself lunch, toasted rye with apple slices and honey, and sat at the kitchen island, flipping through a catalogue for garden benches. Not because she needed one, just because she could choose. Before heading out to a community art class she'd signed up for the night before, she jotted something in her notebook. The world didn't end, it just opened. And beneath it, I didn't lose a family, I found a self. Melissa opened the door to the in-law suite slowly. It smelled faintly of lavender and something settled, not stale, not sour, just still. The bed was made, the drawers were empty. The single framed photo of Harold and Claire that used to sit on the side table was gone. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, arms crossed, unsure of why she'd come in. Maybe to find something she could text about, a question, a reminder, an excuse to reopen the thread that had gone cold. But there was nothing left to ask about. The closet was bare except for one forgotten house robe, hung with surprising care. She touched the fabric. It was soft, familiar, but it didn't hold the warmth she remembered. Outside the small window, life continued. Children rode bikes. A lawnmower hummed in the neighbour's yard. A woman laughed on her phone as she walked past with a stroller. Melissa let the window stay open, letting in the sounds she never used to notice when Claire was just a room away. She sat on the edge of the bed. It didn't creak. The quiet was different now. Before, it had been convenience. Now, it felt like consequence. There was no note, no final gesture, just absence, heavy and whole. She looked around, hoping, somehow, for a sign. But Claire had taken everything that belonged to her, and for the first time Melissa realised Claire had also taken herself, not as punishment, as preservation. And in that space, so carefully cleaned and lovingly erased, Melissa felt a new kind of regret. Not that she had been cruel, but that she had been casual. Ellie was lying on her stomach in the living room, crayons scattered across the rug. Melissa stood nearby, folding laundry with one eye on the afternoon news and the other on the clock. "What are you drawing, sweetie?" "A house," Ellie said. "But it's not real. It's like an inside house." Melissa frowned. "What do you mean?" Ellie didn't look up. "Like the kind of place you go in your mind when things feel icky. Grandma Claire said everybody needs one." Melissa paused. "She said that." "Uh-huh." She said, "Even if the world locks you out, you can still build somewhere inside that no one can touch." Ellie picked up a blue crayon and started shading in a window. Melissa didn't respond right away. She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, watching Ellie's small fingers move with quiet purpose. "Did she tell you that when you were scared?" "No," Ellie said, finally looking up. "She just told me one day, when I was bored and didn't want to clean my room." "Did you clean it?" "No." Ellie grinned. "But I drew her a flower, and she said that counted." Melissa laughed softly, despite herself, but her chest ached because Claire never raised her voice, never demanded. She talked in the quiet space between doing and being, and now, even in her absence, Claire was still speaking, through sidewalk chalk, through soup recipes, through a 10-year-old's drawing of a house built inside the heart. Melissa leaned forward, brushing Ellie's bangs aside. "Can I keep that drawing when you're done?" "No," Ellie said simply. "It's going in Grandma's box." "What box?" "The one I keep under my bed. It has her puzzle piece and a tea bag she gave me. It smells like her." Melissa swallowed hard. "Okay," she whispered. "That's a good place for it." And she meant it. The late afternoon light poured through the open glass doors, pooling on Claire's hardwood floor in long golden ribbons. The wind was gentle, just enough to set the wind chime outside into motion. It had been Harold's, a simple one, brushed copper tubes and a wooden circle worn soft by decades of sun. She'd found it in the garage when packing. Now it hung by her balcony, catching light and memory alike. Claire sat at the small desk she'd placed near the window, her journal open, pen resting gently between her fingers. She hadn't written in a few days. Not because she didn't have words, because she didn't need to chase them anymore. But today, something stirred. She looked out at the skyline, then down at the drawing Ellie had given her weeks before. She'd kept it, folded into the last page of the journal, a crayon house, 2 windows, a door with a crooked heart above it. Claire unfolded it, smiled, and beneath the picture, Ellie had scrawled, "Build it inside." Grandma said so. Claire's hand stilled. That sentence. She remembered the day now. Messy room, excuses, crayons. She hadn't meant it as profound. But maybe those were the things that stuck. She picked up her pen and, on a fresh page, wrote, "Even if the world locks you out, build something inside no one can touch." She underlined it, slowly. Then added, "They don't have to know it to carry it." Outside, the chime rang once, then again. Claire looked up. The sound didn't make her ache. It made her feel echoed, heard even in silence. She closed the journal, tucked it away, and with a quiet exhale, she stood, made tea, then turned on soft music, letting it carry through the apartment like memory set to melody. She didn't need to know if they remembered. She only needed to know she had. Claire sat by the window as the evening came, a soft rain tapping at the glass like an old friend stopping by without a reason. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders and opened a fresh page in her notebook. At the top, she wrote, "To the people I used to make my life about." She paused, then smiled, crossing it out, and wrote instead, "To the version of me who thought she needed to be needed." Her pen moved gently. No rush. You stayed too long at tables where the seat was borrowed. You poured from cups they didn't know you were refilling. You waited in lobbies. You smiled through being forgotten. But then you walked out. Not in anger, not in bitterness. Just forward. Claire looked out the window. The rain had stopped. The wind chime outside clicked once. A soft punctuation. She turned to the small envelope she'd placed on the table. Inside, the letter. She didn't seal it, didn't address it. She slid it into the drawer beside her passport and the deed to her new home. "Some goodbyes," she whispered. "Don't need an audience." Claire stood. She pulled on her light coat and grabbed her bag. Not a suitcase. Just something with room for the day ahead. As she opened the door to step outside, she caught a glimpse of herself in the hallway mirror. Not older, not harder, just clear. Downstairs, the building lobby was quiet. No one waiting, no one watching. She stepped through it anyway. Not with bitterness, not with fanfare, just with purpose. And this time, no one left her behind, because she had already taken herself forward.